Okay, so this is for March 27th. I just going to be talking about the entry into React. In case anyone is not aware, so the React is going to be working as a single page application type of framework so that instead of whenever anyone refreshes the page or anything, will it sends all resources to the user straight away, and then it kind of says like do your own thing versus whenever you refresh and it's like asking the server, can I have it, can I have it, can I have it? So that way we're able to both speed up product or we're both able to speed up the user interactions or like allow them to think that it's going faster. But it's also able to drive down uh, like cloud sharing costs or like server costs depending on how you what your business model is. Just because it's giving to it all at once, you don't have to keep reloading your own assets over and over. So with Chrome, if you're doing React, you can well actually Chrome and Firefox, you can download additional tools to be able to utilize in the developer mode. For example, you can see right here that like this, there's not going to be much pretty to be able to show today, but there you can see where the basis is the fact that like you can see there's a file that's called app and it's going to be rendering the entire page. However, there is a file also called navbar. The navbar is going to be completely separate and the home is going to be completely separate. So you just basically inject it into the app. And so the cool thing about that is if we need to be able to reuse that type of critical stuff in the future, all we have to do is just relink it. Uh, that is ultimately what the power is behind it. If anyone's interested in following this guide, it's been done by this website right here. He has a lot of different things, especially over like yeah Flutter, Vue, TypeScript. So a lot of like full stack type of development. He's very good and he's very free. So totally recommend um, subscribing. All right, so there's not a ton of code to show behind it because it was just a lot of ripping code on and off to be able to figure out what the heck is actually going on. But you can see that every or React app is about like 150 megabytes or something like that. So it is pretty intensive on resources, but you don't have to like push it all up to GitHub or anything. You can download it yourself, or you can download all the dependencies yourself utilizing this package.json. So the important thing to know about the source folder is this is where like 99% of the work's going to be done. You have this main entry point, same way that Java has that like client.java or that main method. This app.js is going to be kind of what that is. So I'm going to zoom in real quick. You can see basically like it's saying I have a class name called app. I'm going to put it right there. Look, here we go. That nav bar we're talking about, that's all it is. It's just one little line right there that's injecting the HTML, which I was trying to build from native JavaScript all this week and death to native JavaScript. Also, you have a lot of really cool, I can't think of the word, but basically like um, there's, there's it's called something very specific in most languages. I don't remember what it is, but when you're able to utilize injecting variables into HTML, but it's a lot easier React because instead of working directly in HTML, you're working in JSX, which is like a templating engine that will convert behind the scenes into HTML at runtime. There's also a lot of other weird learning curves like this uh, like even just the comments are different, so it's a little funky. But at the end of the day, once you get the hang of it, it's way easier to manage. It's way easier to be able to update live. The hooks are really beautiful. Uh, it's super confusing me at the moment. Yeah, so like it uses state management to be able to look for listeners, or you can like tie in listeners so that you can update your site immediately and very cleanly in comparison to a lot of other frameworks that aren't built in this type of method. In case anyone hasn't watched it, by the way, React has this like awesome um, like hour and a half uh, documentary on YouTube. I linked it in a group chat earlier. All right, index.css. Oh, even notice that like you're not even using traditional CSS. You're having to do it quite a bit different. Like class name, it's gonna be using that. You can use inline styling, but you can't. There's so many like things that you can't do. Like CSS allows you to use the dashes, but you can't do that in JSX inline CSS because dashes are like minus signs according to JavaScript. So there's a lot of weird kind of learning curves that's necessary. All right, to talk about React, just the notes really fast. Like we already covered, single page application. It does use Babel and Webpack, and Babel's going to be what's translating uh, like the JSX into HTML and CSS behind the scenes. So that is used in a lot of different languages, but it's very heavily utilized here. Oh, and then it's also good to know that all HTML is going to get loaded into this div ID of root. So here's the starter boiling point. You can kind of see right here at the very bottom. There's just this little tiny part called root. And the crazy thing is your entire application is going to end up coming or inject it right into that one div. And you're just going to dynamically handle it for whatever you have to do. Okay. We talked about this. There's a lot of extra tools that they give us. Thanks, Facebook. I guess Meta. Like the strict mode to be able to handle debugging really efficiently. It just gives us extra warnings that won't actually be visible during production. Also, it is hot loading functional right out of the gate, which is amazing. The same way that like you can use vanilla HTML, CSS, JavaScript to be able and use a live server plus autosave, so that way you can see reflections in your code immediately, like on the web browser. This will do it right out of the gate. It's built like that. All right, next. Yeah, we talked about JSX. Emmet's really, really nice for this. You have to install it personally into your IDE because it doesn't come with it out of the box, unlike most other languages. There's also a lot of weird syntax to start learning, like SFC, which is a stateless functional component. So you use that and it will automatically start generating an entire little component, like the way we had a navbar. You just put an SFC and it's like, I got you. And it puts in these arrow anonymous functions straight out of the gate. Here's an interesting change. So we have um, the new style of CSS inline that's handled like an actual JavaScript object versus just how you normally see it. Other things start getting real spicy, I guess I should say, like click events, like you actually just start being able to say, I'll highlight it here, let me change pen colors. So we have handle click, like we're just adding it to the button, and it's just traveling right on up to this anonymous arrow function. It knows not to fire immediately on page load because it's actually just a reference to an anonymous function through the saving of a constant variable. So then we start being like, well, what if you want to add an argument? You can start naming things with the anonymous functions or like the arrow functions from Java. You can just start slamming the variables in it, but it starts getting a little more difficult now because to be able to pass that in, we can no longer actually call the reference to the function, because the only way to pass in the variable is to enact that function. So we're actually having to make a second anonymous function to reference the first anonymous function with a with the additional information, which is kind of ridiculous, but I'm sure very smart people try to figure it out, and that is the best way they could. Okay. And then we actually start talking about some state management. So we have a use state, and this is pretty cool that you can use a name and set name. So whenever you're clicking a button, we're actually updating the state live, and it's immediately reflected inside of your code. Unlike something that's just happening in the background, this is going like, and then you have to like usually traditionally very like target the div uh, by a query selector, get parent node, travel through the events, probably go through some stupid array. This is does it much cleaner. You can start even making that more interesting. Like say if you had an entire blog post, you can use state to actually put in all information, which of course you can import versus like hard coding like this. And then you use traditional JavaScript inside of the JSX to be able to script through. Like for example, like a for each method that's pretty clean in JavaScript is the map. So you're going to map through each blog, and you're going to call each part of the thing blog. It references it by ID because those are all individual, and then it'll just print out the title and the author. That is all I have for this first third of the tutorial. Thank you very much.